We've got Chip Scholz to share some wisdom with us today. So with that, I'm going to let him take it away.
God, what an introduction. Now I have to come up with some wisdom. You know, listen, I didn't know exactly who was going to be on the call today. And so I'm going to preface it with, I'm going to share some of the things that I found in 20 years of doing this. Brown could probably tell you twice as much and probably already has. And I know a lot of the people on the call today could tell you as well. So listen, what I want to do, since we aren't that big a group, I'd really like to hear a little bit from you. You know, so if you could tell me how long you've been in business, you know, what you specialize in, and then, you know, just what can I help you with? And so Tom Leonard, why don't you start off?
Okay, unmute first. I've been with the affiliates for 11 years now, and I do three main things: strategic planning, sales training, and management training, where I actually use team leadership. So those are the key issues I use, and they're a little bit challenging right now because of discretionary expenses. Travel and training get cut first.
Strategic planning has been off the table for, you know, yeah, I get that. Yeah, so how can I help you?
I'm always on these to see what I can learn. So we'll see what we can pick up and learn. I'd like to, you know, I've helped people as you go through time. I'd like to start to help them with a structured program solution that we have. One of those three, and for right now, not happening much.
I got it. Tom Lemansky, how about you?
So I've been in the network since 2001.
Since Christ was a carpenter.
Since what was that?
Since Christ was a carpenter, right?
No,
well, that's Brown. That's Brown.
I know that. And Doug was my fast start facilitator, so you know he has seniority here, but we knew that. And so since I joined, I've had the opportunity to sample and get paid for pretty much every process in the cabinet, other than the quality stuff. But mostly what I use today is coaching. Because in about 2006, most of you know, I bought the domain chicagoexecutivecoaching.com, and it wasn't an overnight success, but it's got to the point where I have a nice trickle of people that have raised their hand looking to be coached. They have needs that are, they have active needs, and my closing ratio is pretty good. And so, I've gotten a bit complacent. 2 weeks ago, my granddaughter and daughter and son-in-law moved in, and so yeah, now I'm in la la land again, just playing around with a baby, and coaching on occasion. You know, I go downstairs in my office and turn the lights on, and you know, what coaching engagements I have, I'm maintaining, and life is good. How can you help me to? Because I did hear the question. You know, maybe at some point I need to be a bit less complacent, but life is good. To what extent do I need to modify what I'm doing? But I've been coaching on Zoom, you know, occasionally for 6-7 years. So it hasn't been a big adjustment for me.
I heard an echo.
Yeah, and I'll mute after I'm finished, and I think I'm finished. So
okay, thanks Tom.
Chip.
Rick, how about you?
So I've been in the network for 12 years. I run RPC Leadership Associates. I work primarily with small, mid-sized businesses, nonprofit leaders, and corporate leadership teams. When the opportunity arises, I do the occasional work with the occasional student groups using Rising Stars, which is pretty much the only canned process I use at this point. Everything else is customized to what, you know, how I can help my clients make leadership a way of life. So what I'd like to get out of this is some intel. You know, I figure a group as talented as this has probably seen some things over the last couple of months. I think that kind of intel can help us all in kind of some of the trends that we're seeing, some of the conversations we're hearing with our clients, and how to, you know, get ramped up. You know, I just signed on 2 new clients in the last month, one in Colorado, one in downstate Illinois. So I'm still rocking it.
Good, thanks. Nancy, how about you? You're on mute.
Yeah.
Now
Hi,
you're off
guys.
mute.
I think I know most of you. I've been part of the network for, I guess it's 13 years now. And I started out, I was a government employee. So that meant I started out knowing no one and knew nothing, and learned that the hard way. And my vision all along, though, was to be able to do work with companies who were involved in international trade. And so I've climbed my way up that process to the point now I'm very active in Baltimore sister cities. I work with the World Trade Center, the Maryland, DC District Export Council, just to name a few. And it seems that just as we were ready to move forward, we are faced with this. So what I've been doing, and I guess I'm kind of looking for some suggestions, I've adopted the idea right now that I'm not really looking to take on paying clients. I want to find a way of giving back to the community. And I say, this is how I can help with the economic stimulus. I'm working with 2 companies in terms of using our intermetrics tools to help them grow their employees. And then I'm looking to do more with planning or doing SWOT analysis for those people who are process oriented to figure out what kind of an interview I can take them through to help them move forward. But any ideas or thoughts would be great.
Good, thanks. Bob?
Yeah, hey, I'm Bob Kinney with Accelerate Results Group. I've been with the network since 2011, but been pulled away on different projects several times. But basically, performance acceleration for small, medium size manufacturing. And so align people, agile processes where I bring in, you know, the lean in that part. And basically to create a high growth strategy. And so in corporate life, in 3 different general management roles, I was able to lead businesses to at least 25% growth for 3 years in a row on 3 different occasions. And a lot of what I used or put together fits exactly with the, you know, the Trust Advisors Network whole concept of, you know, aligning the people and the processes and so on. And that's kind of how I try to put it together. What I'm always looking for, well, I love the network and I love the sharing and appreciate everyone who does share. And the more, you know, the more different ideas, especially when people can really get specific. You know, we had one not long ago, you know, here's exactly what I do. Here's a process I use. Here's what I charge, how many people I have. And all those kinds of things are just very helpful in, you know, putting together your playbook. So thanks a lot for sharing.
Thanks, Bob. Adam?
Hi, folks. Adam Pressman of Leadership Shape. I was in Nancy's class at Fast Start, so I've been in the network for a good long time as well. Have been spending most of the time since engaged with government employees, therefore using their content as opposed to REC or TAN's content, but leveraging my time in Coaching Academy and TQI to their benefit. I'll be pulling out of that world shortly, so the thing that I would most like to learn is how people are using the learning management system versions of the processes. They were all paper and bound when I was last using them, and I'd like to get some guidance on that. And also the side business that I started of funding businesses has become particularly useful as an adjunct. So I now, in meetings, call myself the business coach you can bank on, as we're able to find funding for some of these opportunities for transformation as well. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Adam. Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown?
Doug Brown of Paradigm Associates. Jesus was a good friend of mine. And yeah, we built a lot of wooden structures together. Have been in the network since '85.
That was 1885.
Correct.
Okay.
No, Arnie, that's your 1885.
No, I came in after Doug, so I was 1887.
So within the next 30 days, I hit what, 35 years. It's similar to what Tom said. I'm always a believer that it doesn't take too many nuggets of an idea to make a change, or to do some things differently. And I got to admit, similar to where Nancy was coming from, the first couple of weeks, it was all about not so much worried about my wallet, but just kind of saying, what do I need to reach out and do some things to help people and so on. So yeah, there was some probably 14 to 15 hour days just doing all kinds of stuff for all kinds of organizations, not-profit organizations, for-profit, and so on. But to me, it's now time to kind of go back to the focus of, okay, with things starting to open up and so on, how do I want to better capitalize on the kind of what's cooking and what's kind of opening up. And just from a disclosure perspective, I've got a client call at 3:30, so I'll be on with you for the next 17 minutes, and then I'm off to the
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. Chris, how about you?
Thanks, Chip. I actually work with Doug with Paradigm Associates, but I am a complete newbie to the network, to the industry. Literally just started working, just started training really 2 months ago. Did my agility training with Wendy. And so I really love these calls because people like yourself, Chip and Tom and Rick and Nancy and Bob and everyone is just they're so welcoming, they're so open, they're sharing great information. You guys all know Doug, obviously, and I get a kick out of Arnie as well. But I really am enjoying this. This is a career change for me. I worked for over 25 years in business operations and publishing as an executive, 22 of which with ESPN. And I'm just loving this. I'm really enjoying it so far. And I'm just trying to be a sponge and absorb as much as possible from all you folks who are tremendously knowledgeable and generous. So thanks for
Chris. And I couldn't think of anybody better to work with than Doug. Denise?
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Janice. I'm new. I did my agility training with Wendy and Chris. So I was in a different industry. I was in the insurance industry, and I was doing business development, and I just saw myself doing all the work and not being compensated for it. So I wanted to find a way that I can do the work and get paid for it, for training and coaching. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm brand new to the industry, to the network. So I'm just looking forward to learning all I can. I'm in Michigan also, so.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Arnie, how about you?
As we stated, I've been in the network slightly less than Doug. And if I was first, I would have said he was in 1866, and I came in shortly after that. I will celebrate my 25th year this July. My business has always been a balance of working with organizations and working with individuals. And that's my clients now. Over the last couple of weeks, I have gotten 2 new clients through this mess. One is a business and the other is an individual. The reason I'm here is the day before yesterday, on Monday, I got what I think is a world-shaking revelation, and I've already been talking to Rick about it, and I'm going to meeting tomorrow with Tammy. Whether it's going to go anywhere or not, I don't know. So it was a nugget. It was almost a throwaway line from Rick that had me want to follow up on something. Might not be anything, but every time I'm on any kind of call like this, there's always something comes up that wow, there's an idea. Some germinate and do something with, and some don't. So my role is whenever these are offered, I want to be here. And that is a neat beard, Chip. I hadn't seen that before, so nobody's comment. I want to comment on that. I want you driving a buckboard in eastern Pennsylvania with a hat, that goes up like that.
Hey, I'm a wood turner, and so you got to look the part,
You bet, right?
Just like an Amish. I'm turning Amish, and
There you go.
Actually, this is the only way it grows. Anyway, thanks, Arnie. Cleveland, how about you? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Cleveland, right.
Muted.
You're still on mute, Cleveland.
Still on mute, Cleveland.
And someone who was trying to help me out, but okay. So here I am. My name is Cleveland Park. I've been in the network now 5 years actually in the network, but really didn't really start doing anything until the year after. So I really say 4 years. Parker Corporate Group, and I'm engaged in consulting, coaching, and want to do more facilitating, speaking. Focused on strategy, leadership. I actually use a concept called, a lean concept called strategic deployment as an overall business management tool, but I use the trusted advisor processes to help formulate the different areas, whether it's strategic planning, leadership development, or sales development. Why am I here? Because whenever I'm on a call, like Tom said initially, whenever I'm on a call like this, there are folks up here that have been doing this really since before I started college, and it's
that hurts. That really hurts, Cleveland.
But it's always, and like Arnie said, I always get something. I always get something from someone in the group, usually more than one thing, and then it's a matter of taking that back and figuring out a way to utilize it to help me improve my business. So that's the reason.
Good, thanks. I appreciate it. Lauren?
Hi, I've been in the network since 2016, and I went through the coaching academy. I'm certified, and my business has been primarily one-to-one coaching. I've done, I'm just dabbling with strategic planning. I did a session last part of last year into this year. And I also, it's my third career, so I am still working with not-for-profits to do fundraising. I had a couple of big experiences in professional fundraising just before this.
Good, thanks, Lauren.
And the reason I'm here is because, like a couple of you mentioned, there is something of incredible value at each of these sessions. And it's just a privilege to be around people who are actually out there and doing it and being successful.
Good, thanks. Adam?
You got me already.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'm just
I'll
following.
speak twice if you want me to, but most people won't.
I'm following the line around and I didn't see your face. Berthe? And by the way, my great-grandmother's name was Berthe.
Well, unfortunately, I am not sheltering in place. I'm outside. And because I find such great value, I said I need to connect on my mobile to hear what values and what gems are being shared. I'm on my way back to my office. But I have been with the network since 2016. And I have received so much value, have grown so much. I appreciate working closely since the end of last year with Arnie. So just want to give a shout out. Thank you, Arnie, for your guidance and your help. And I love this network, and I'm looking forward to what you have to share today.
Thank you. Well, listen, we've got a broad range of experience on the call, from all the way from Chris that just started off, and who else? Denise was just starting off. to Cleveland, who's kind of a mid-career in this, and then there's some guys that have been around for a long time. I'm not a 25 with Arnie, but I just celebrated 20 years in the business. And so what I wanted to share, instead of just telling my story and telling what was what was important to me as I came up through, what I wanted to do is I want to share kind of the tenets that drive me. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think if you haven't, you need to determine it for you and to think about what your tenets are that really drive you, and then also how, when you're at a point like this, or my business has never been busier, but it happened that way intentionally, so that it can ride out some of the bumps and grinds of that. But how do you get your mojo back? And one of the things that I've always thought, and I see it all the time with Arnie and Doug especially, is when do you give up? I mean, Arnie and Doug have never given up. And I've seen so many people over their career just give up. And you even hear RIP, not rest in peace, but retired in place. And you see people that are retired in place, and you go, God, when did you stop? So the tenets that I want to share with you is, and there's a story that goes along with each one of them, but the first one is, David Hernliger was my first coach, and I coached with David before he even knew what coaches were, and we kind of stumbled upon it together and figured a lot of this stuff out. And one of the things he did in taking me through the process, I can't remember what it was, maybe it was leadership or something like that. But maybe one of the things that he did when he took me through the process was he made me do a purpose statement. And that has served me so well in just about everything I do. I just had a conversation with a guy that was a coaching client that's going to be promoted. And I said, okay, so what's your theme for leadership? What's your purpose statement going into leadership? I use it all the time, but my purpose statement, and it took a while to figure out, was I live to develop people. Now, it's very specific, because I live to develop, from the time I get up in the morning to the time I go to bed at night, I'm working on developing people, whether they're my family, although after a while they really get tired of being developed. But that's what I do. And so what I'm there to do is to make things better and to develop them to the best they can be. But it's not that I just live to develop people. I don't just live to develop others. I'm a people too. And so I've got to be the best that I can be. And so one of the things that I've learned over the years, in this business especially, is, we all talked about years ago, we all talked about being a product of the process, right? Everybody talks about being the product of the process. What I learned is, yeah, you can have it built into your DNA and you can understand the process really well, but when it really comes alive is when you do the reading, when you read broadly, when you're able to interject different thoughts and different ideas and build your philosophy around trusted advisors, around whatever you happen to use. And so developing people, developing myself to be the best I can be is something that's something that happens daily. Whether it be reading the op-eds in the Wall Street Journal or reading a book, or, I've got audiobooks going all the time and that kind of stuff. And I think that's how you maintain some mental flexibility. The second thing is failure is not an option. And there's a couple of reasons that I say that. when you have the mindset that failure is not an option, I have seen lots of people come and go in the network over the years, and I know everybody has, that don't really have to be there. They've got they've got a decent severance from the company that they left, and they're going to dabble in consulting or coaching or whatever they want to call it, and they get into it, and then when the first obstacle arises, they kind of go, I'm out. I remember one of the guys that I went through Fast Start, I guess it's called Agility now, but Fast Start way back in the day, was a guy named Doug Harden, and Doug passed away of cancer a number of years ago. But when I remember about 6 months after going through Fast Start, I came in from making a couple of sales calls, and Doug and I were accountability partners. And I called him, and we had a call scheduled. And I called him, and his wife said, well, he's out in the backyard. He's working on the brush pile. That kind of told me everything I needed to know. But he would continually tell me that, he had something else to do, or have you gone to any networking? Well, yeah, I went to one networking last week. Failure is not an option. I didn't have anything to go back to. I never wanted to get a JOB again. I never did. And there are a couple of times in my career where I was to the point of firing resumes. And in fact, I actually interviewed for one job, and they offered me the job, and it was a pretty good job. And I came home, and I said to my wife, I said, it's a really good job, pays really well, but I don't want to work that hard. And she says, you already work 20 hours a day. And I said, yeah, but I get to do that because I want to do that. He said, and I said, not because somebody's going to make me do that. And so, failure is not an option. It's just, the first 5 years in this business were not great. I used to say they sucked, but that wasn't very nice. So I say they were not great. And it just, it took time to build momentum, and so the other failure is not an option story is I had a stroke. Some of you know that, but I had a stroke 8 years ago. I was with a client. I was in a client's office. I was facilitating. I was standing in front of a class of about 25 people, and had a stroke. And people in the class sat and watched me have the stroke and just let me go on my merry way. I lost my language. There's a long story that goes along with that, but I was in the hospital for a couple of days. This was in Jacksonville, Florida, so my wife had to fly down, and I would never ever want to get that phone call. My client called my wife and said, "Hey, Chip's had a stroke," and wow. When I came out of the stroke, I was unable to do most things with my right side. I was not able to find words. I had severe aphasia. I just, and my mouth drooped, and all those stereotypical things we hear about stroke patients. What I love is I talk about people doing things different ways. Well, when I can talk about it is something that is as simple as brushing your teeth. And I've always brushed my teeth with my right hand, and all of a sudden you have to do it with your left hand, and it sucks. And there are a lot of other things that suck about having to do things with your left hand when you're right-handed. And so, it was failure's not an option. There's only one moment that I had a woe is me moment, and it just was over and it passed. And so, failure was not an option. I started walking, and at first I could walk just around the block. maybe even not all the way around the block. And then, you know, a little while later, I was walking around the block and 2 blocks and 3 blocks and 4 blocks. And I got to the point where I was walking 10 miles a day. And I did that for 2 years. I had some surgery, and that stopped my reign of walking every day, anywhere between 4 and 10 miles a day. I figure I walked somewhere around 3,800 miles in 2 years. And in the meantime, I lost 110 pounds in that time too. You know, again, failure is not an option. And listen, I wanted to be healthy in the worst way. Plus, you know, I have a pretty stable group of clients. There's one client that I've worked with, Haskell, for 11 years, and they've been pretty much half of my revenue for most of that 11 years. And that's where I had the stroke. So they, you know, the client down there really took care of me very well. But you know, it's just, you just got to believe that failure is not an option, and you got to believe that you know, whatever happens, you're going to come through it. I know that's not true for everybody, but it was for me. And then there's another one. There's a book that I've been reading called The Daily Stoic. And it's written by Ryan Holiday. He's the one who wrote The Obstacle is the Way. The one thing I love about this book, and you can see I've got it all marked up, and you know, I'm writing all kinds of things in there. You know, there's marginal notes. You know, we were always taught to write marginal notes and highlight everything, and so yeah, I do that. And I love the book because and I don't know if you know much about the Stoics, but Stoic, or the Stoics, are called Stoics because it was the philosopher Zeno who got on the agora and was walking across the agora, the porch of the marketplace in Athens, and started philosophizing. And the porch is the Stoa, and that's why they call them the Stoics. And so it's you know, like Zeno and Seneca and Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and Diogenes and Rufus. Those are considered the Stoics. And if you read a lot of the Stoic literature, so much of the Stoic literature is so akin to what we do, and it's just amazing. So what Holiday does is he takes one of the Stoics and he writes you know, he puts a verse or two or maybe a couple of paragraphs of Stoic literature in here, and then he riffs on it for a couple of paragraphs. Well, the one that I absolutely love is one that I think is the quote of this year, and for me, it's the quote of every year, and it's one of my you know, one of my key tenets. This is a Marcus Aurelius quote, and he says, "Chasing what can't be done is madness, but the base person is unable to do anything else." Holiday's take on this, and I think this is the quote of the year: "A mind that isn't in control of itself, that doesn't understand its power to regulate itself, will be jerked around by external events and unquestioned impulses." Oh my God! I mean, if that doesn't talk about the last couple months, I don't know what does. But it just hit me perfectly. And what hit me so hard was that's the journey that we're all on. It's how do we regulate our minds so we're able to. Hold on just a second. I think somebody just chatted. But how do we regulate our minds so that we're able to avoid those unquestioned impulses? And it's the discipline that goes into that. The Stoics often talk about how the best way to avoid anguish is by virtue. So if you do something really stupid and life altering that you have control over, that's going to mess you up. Okay? So it fits with a lot of the stuff that we teach. It fits with a lot of the stuff we talk about. And that just, that was just the perfect. A mind that isn't in control of itself, that doesn't understand the power to regulate itself, will be jerked around by external events and unquestioned impulses. Wow. So that's my tenet. Yeah.
Before you move on, could you please repeat the name of the book and the author again?
The Daily Stoic.
Stoic.
By Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday?
Yes. Like a vacation.
Thanks.
Sure. I happen to start it January 1st, which it starts in January, but you can pick it up any time of the year. And I just think it's fantastic. And then the last one is, I'm sure there's probably a Marine or two on the call. I've learned to say not an ex-Marine because there are no ex-Marines, but the other one is the last tenet is Semper Gumby. Semper Gumby, always flexible. And so I'll tell you where the genesis of that is years ago, the guy that's at or the guy that's at Haskell right now, I started working with 20 years ago. So this has been a real stable relationship and a great relationship. I did a bunch of business with the company that it was with 20 years ago. He moved companies a couple times, and I'm doing a lot of business with his company now. One of the things that my coach talked me into years ago was to do a 360 on myself. And I don't know how many people have the guts to do a 360 on yourself, but it's to go to your clients and ask 3 or 4 simple questions. What can I do better? What is it that you value about doing business with me? How can I help? Just really 3 or 4 little simple questions. And so I emailed about 10 different clients, and I got feedback from all of them, and it was, some was humbling feedback. And one of the pieces of feedback from Dave Thaler, and I don't know, Cleveland, have you met Dave yet? I know you've met AJ, but Cleveland is going to do a little bit of work for Haskell coming up. Dave Thaler said to me, he said, why are you so rigid? There's not a certain way to do things. There's not a certain way of being. There's not a certain way that you have to deliver. Be flexible. And so, what I learned is something that's really stupid, and I should have known it before, was do what the customer wants you to do. Do it in your own style, but, be flexible. And if a client doesn't want to do strategic planning, well, so that leads me to talk about the structure of my business at this point. And I think, some people are okay with doing certain things. So there may be 1 or 2 or 3 certain things that you do. Strategic planning, maybe you do assessment work, maybe you do whatever. Going from flexibility and Semper Gumby over the years, there's a whole lot of things that I do. And I found if I only had to rely on coaching, you can make a decent living at coaching, but I get bored. I really get bored. I don't want to get stuck doing one thing or another. And so, you know, I got involved in coaching really early with Herdlinger. I started, you know, I didn't really like the whole idea that he explained to me of sitting in the living room on your sofa in your underwear, talking on the phone. I just couldn't get that visual out of my mind. If you know Herdlinger, you probably know why. You know, what I learned is that I really like to talk to people, but here's the key to that business plan is I wanted to get to the point where I had 20 clients paying me $500 a month. That was my whole goal. I currently have 43 coaching clients, so it's, you know, it drives me a little crazy, but some of those coaching clients I've had for, I think my longest coaching client is almost 15 years at this point. So I'm not the kind of person that, you know, I was originally involved with the RAC, you know, have a class, be unemployed every 8 weeks. You know, that business model never really worked for me. So I wanted something that was going to be long-term and something that I could count on, something that I could build. So that was the first thing. Second thing, you can't get away from stand-up facilitation. And, you know, I love working with a team, but I love working with a team for a purpose. I run a couple of leadership academies. You've heard Colster talk about leadership academies. I was the one who started the leadership academy at Haskell 11 years ago. And we have a 3-year program that we take people through leadership series 1, 2, and 3. And you know, it again for my, you know, my permanence, my stickiness. It's a 3-year program, so every year I start, I know I got 2 more years at least before they kick me out. And that has turned into a really, that's one of their most popular programs for up and coming people and for you know, for the emerging leaders in the company. Haskell is a company of about 1,700. It's a design, build, construction company, architects and engineers and that kind of thing, and they really put a lot of stock in developing their people. And so, you know, so I love that. I love that permanence. Now, you know, I'm 63, and so you hope you can keep up with that permanence and you know, keep doing the classes. But yeah, that's the other thing I like. So I do the coaching. I also do a number of 360s. There was a gentleman several years ago that taught me how to do 360s and do 360s more like executive evaluations. So instead of just the 360 that is a you know, a electronic survey, I use that. I use assessments. You can use intermetrics along with that, and also do interviews. And you know, it's so much of the coaching that's in the debrief as well, and a debrief between the person and the person's boss as well. Which leads to a lot of coaching assignments as well. I do probably 15 or 20 360s a year. I do a lot of selection work. I'm in the process of trying to find a company in New Jersey, a CFO, or actually New York. In fact, Valley Stream, Long Island. Interesting company, but they're looking for a CFO. So I'm doing all the assessment work on finding them a CFO. I do a lot of assessment work for different companies, helping them to hire better. Then I also run mastermind groups. There's 4 mastermind groups that are run for a trade association. The mastermind groups have been together. The longest one is 12 years. And I've got a couple of other ones. The most recent one is about 3 years. But there's anywhere between 10 and 12 people that pay me on an annual basis to be a part of this mastermind group. And so, you know, there's just, when it talks about Semper Gumby, it's, listen, there are all kinds of ways to put it together. It's just being flexible enough to put it together. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody. I hope you got a nugget, especially Denise and Chris. This is a great business because I love it. I absolutely love it. I absolutely live it, and you know, it just fits me. And I see the comment from Arnie. You mean you're allowed to quit? No, you know, Arnie, no, none of us are allowed to quit. So anyway, any questions? Any questions you might have for me? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah. Hey, Chip. At some of the summits, I've always enjoyed talking to the folks who have these, like I call it like a retainer model or whatever. When you talk about your goal of having, I want to have 20 clients at, I think you said $500 a month.
Yeah.
That was like an initial goal or whatever. That 500, to what extent would you call that coaching, or to what extent was that like a business strategy, trusted advisor, whatever it takes that month? Or how would you kind of describe that relationship or the intent?
Okay, so the first 12 sessions I charged 10 grand for.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason the first 12 sessions and the way I set it up is I use the first 4 chapters of coaching, and I use some other materials that I've cobbled together, and I have a program that I take people through for 12 sessions. The reason I do that is because it sets you up for the long-term haul.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not looking at the end of those 12 sessions to say, you graduated, goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing is at the end of the 12 sessions, we have built a relationship up and had conversations that are outside of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the first couple of sessions, I talk a lot. You know, the first couple of chapters of coaching are fantastic. I mean, they're my favorite chapters, and especially the chapters of a product of the past and affirming yourself. And they're my favorite chapters in the whole world. And the reason they're my favorite chapters is because it allows me to bring in a lot of conversation about emotional intelligence and how do we change and that kind of stuff. So I spent a lot of time in the first 4 sessions talking, but it's kind of like, you know, a decline, and at the same time they're ramping up. And so by the time we get to the probably about the 8th or 9th session, I'm not talking much at all. I'm just asking questions and I'm coaching. What it becomes is I'm like, there's a guy that I've been coaching for 8 years. He was a division leader with Haskell. He became a group president with Haskell, and now he's the COO of the company. So we have discussions about people, because I know a lot of the people in the company. We have great conversations about strategy that's going on behind the scenes. And if you want to say trusted advisor, I mean, the trusted advisor status is what it becomes.
Yeah.
So you know, that's my whole point. And there's quite, when you talk about retainers, there's quite a few people that pay me $6 grand at the beginning of the year, and we just go. There's one company that I coach a number of people with, and they just pay me at the first of the year for everything. And thank God they did this year.
Yeah.
Because they've just been through a round of layoffs, and I'm glad I wasn't part of the cutting room floor. So anyway, thanks. Any other questions?
Chip, a comment. You mentioned mastermind groups, and for me, that's my takeaway today. I was in a president's club before I got into this. And, you know, maybe it was a Vistage model or whatever, but it was a trade specific president's club. And I got into this business and I wanted to put one together, but traveling around Chicago to get people to come and travel I couldn't pick a central location. I didn't know how, there was a geographic obstacle, and I just stopped. What are we doing today? There's no geographic obstacle. Hello. So yeah. Thanks.
Well, and so let me explain that. I did it. I'm a part of a trade group called the International Warehouse Logistics Association. And by the way, the warehousing business is booming right now. I'm part of IWLA, and I went to them with the concept, and they said, yeah, that sounds nice. And I said, I'll prove the concept to you. So I started a group, and I didn't even charge the group, but the group was made up of people from, there was somebody in Haywood, California. There was somebody in Cincinnati, and somebody in they're all over the place. Augusta, Georgia, Boston, and the way I set it up is that we have we started off with conference calls, because that was 12 years ago, and they've now become Zoom calls. But we have a Zoom call about once a month. And we have a format, and with that group that's been together 12 years, the format's kind of out the window, and we just have great conversations. But I moderate everything, and then once a year we get together in one of the people's home cities, and I do all the ground travel arrangements. They do all their airfare and all that kind of stuff. But I'm the one that puts together a hotel and dinners and meeting rooms and all that kind of stuff. The only thing I get for that is I get the points on my credit card, but that's enough. But the point is that I've become that fly on the wall for the industry group, and that I've been pushed over the years to add more groups, and so I have. The really nice thing is that the association does all the billing, all the follow-up, all the collection, and sends me a check. And they keep part of the money. So the really nice part is that they're benefiting from it as well. So if you can find a partnership like that, that's really great. Thanks, Tom. Any other questions? It's really a pleasure to talk to you. It's great to see you. Just even if I see the disembodied picture, or just to see Arnie smile is worth it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chip. If there's no other questions, then we'll let you guys get out here a little bit early. Again, thank you, Chip, for your time, and thank all the rest of you guys for attending the session today.
Thanks, Chip.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chip.
Appreciate it, Chip.